Hi everyone, I'm going to continue this series of the Yalkut Yosef here in the streets of Bet Shemesh here in Israel. I pretty much own the street at the moment because there's hardly anyone here on this fantastic Sunday morning at the time of recording. I'll give you some scenes of the street over here and we're going to get started underway. I had to go to the doctors just before. Baruch Hashem, everything's good with my blood tests. Do a yearly one. Cholesterol is good, so let's get started. We're going to talk all about contemporary issues inside this Yalkut Yosef Halacha of Shabbat series over here, so you can enjoy the morning views of Israel. I'm bringing Israel to the whole world at the moment to learn some halacha and everything else, and just look behind the streets of Israel as I get prepared now for this hopefully thought-provoking series in the Shabbat halacha of the Yalkut Yosef. Remember, I'm using the second edition over here. So I very much recommend everyone to... We can learn about doing workings on Shabbat. We know there's 39 workings you're not allowed to do on Shabbat. We've learned before that. This is Lamed Tet Melachot. But what if it's automatically performed on Shabbat? That's what we can discuss about in today's series of the thing. So we are actually going to enter now Siman 252. Naturally over here, I'll give a short introduction. We learned previously in Siman 246 that Bet Shammai, the commentator, the rabbi, held that we are forbidden to have our possessions perform acts of workings of melacha on Shabbat, even if it happens automatically without a Jew performing any action on Shabbat. He's always the strict opinion, Bet Shammai. Then there's Bet Hillel, the houses of Hillel. They tend to be more lenient with regards to these things. They say that we may set up our possessions before Shabbat, that they will perform acts of melacha on the Shabbat by themselves, naturally. That's what's going to be done. And go on, so on and so forth. Another interesting thing I'll add on before I start now these halachot. Bet Hillel, according to him, it should be mutar, permissible, to feed wheat into one's water mill before Shabbat begins and allow the mill to grind the wheat into flour automatically on the Shabbat itself. The Rabbah in the Gemara ruled that there is an additional problem over here. He adds extra issues. The mill causes loud noises as it grinds. So is this a problem on Shabbat, this loud noise? It's considered a disregard, a flagrant disregard of the honor of the Shabbat itself if you do that, to make this noise. So that's another interesting. However, Rav Yosef is going to disagree with this principle, and they're going to go on and so forth. The Shulchan Aruch, I'll just, before I start on rules, according to Rav Yosef, that one may set up melacha to be performed automatically, even if it causes a noise. So noise, we're not really worried about it. And Sephardic Jews follow this practice. So being a Sephardi Jew, I would be able to be lenient on this seemingly. Obviously, other rabbis will have different opinions. However, the commentator the Ramah, Rav Moshe Israelis, who advocates for the Ashkenazi Jews, would be more strict within regards to this ruling. So guys, let's take it away here. Let's try and cover this now as much as we can. I hope the connection's going to be good. Enjoy. Remember, everyone, get this edition. I always recommend to everybody, look into the halacha yourself, don't just rely on this. And this is just a tool, an extra crutch, as they say. Siman 252, friends. Halacha Aleph of the melacha performed automatically on Shabbat. Let's go for it. Mutar להתחיל במלאכה בערב שבת ובערב יום טוב אפילו סמוך לכניסת השבת והחג. You're going to be able to set up, let's just say, a workings, and something that's automatically functioned on Shabbat, even if it's set up just before the start of the Shabbat or the Yom Tov, naturally, even if it's at the time of just close to it. Even if the actual working itself you're going to do, which you've automated, is actually going to be completed during the Shabbat itself. Okay, so what's this saying here? The Torah prohibits us from performing melacha actively on Shabbat only. Furthermore, we are allowed to benefit from the results of melacha that proceeded automatically on Shabbat. So if it was done with an automator, seemingly benefits is allowed. Even if it's going to make a noise on Shabbat, Maran Shulchan Aruch is actually going to allow. ולכן מותר לפתוח מים לגינה מערב שבת, והמים הולכים משקים את הגינה. You can set up, let's say, a sprinkler system for the lawns or whatever it might be for the gardens. You can do that before Shabbat, even if it's going to work itself on Shabbat itself, seemingly. inside the garden. ויש אומרים שאף מותר לכוון את השעון השבת על מנת שיפעל מעלה בשבת את הממטרות כדי להשקות את העצים וכדומה. One may actually set up this sprinkler system with a timer that will turn the water on automatically at some time on Shabbat. So before Shabbat you set up this time watch or whatever it is, and on itself it will be activated on Shabbat itself. Okay. ויש אומרים שאף מותר לכוון את שעון שבת על מנת שיפעל מעלה בשבת את המטרות כדי להשקות את העצים. Continuing. ויש מחמירים בזה. Some rabbis actually can be strict on this. וטוב לכתוב פתק על יד שער הגינה שהמטרות פועלת על ידי שעון בשבת שכיוון מערב שבת. אך מדינה לדידן העיקר להקל בזה גם בלי שיתלה פתק בשער. Some people will say on the gate of this garden, which you can be doing this sprinkler system, then you should actually write a small note on the gate itself, the gate doors itself, just to tell them that the protocol, what you're doing inside this garden, is to actually set up this sprinkler system on Shabbat itself. So we're already on Halacha Bet at the moment, in Siman 252, friends. מותר לצאת בערב שבת כדי עם תבשיל שלא נתבשל כלל על גבי האש. אז שהתבשיל הולך ומתבשל מעלה בשבת. וכן מותר להדליק את הנר מערב שבת, והיא דולקת בכל שבת. So friends, now we're talking about putting a food on, let's just say the gas stove, before Shabbat, and it's not necessarily cooked. Is this going to be allowed or not? It's allowed, according to this, to put a pot of raw food, keywords raw food, on the fire just before the Shabbat begins, even though the cooking will actually entirely take place on Shabbat. Likewise, one may kindle a light before Shabbat and leave it to burn throughout the Shabbat itself. So we're going to go into reasons why this will be allowed on as we go on. Now we're talking about using a watermill, friends, on Shabbat. Is that going to be allowed or not? מותר לצאת חיצים מערב שבת, סמוך לחשיכה לתוך ריחיים של מים. שהם טוחנים ומשמיעים כל בשבת. Okay, one may feed kernels into a watermill just before Shabbat and lead them to ground into flour automatically over Shabbat, even though the mill causes a lot of noise while it operates. Remember, we said in the introduction, some Rabbonim, some different thoughts might say this noise itself from the grinding would be a problematic, but seemingly here not. We're allowed to be lenient on this. This is with the understanding of Maran Shulchan Aruch. Now a difference, if you're going to put this chitim inside this mill where there's mayim on Shabbat, over al isu tochen min Torah, then it's going to be a massive issue. It's going to be actually isu min Torah of the malacha of grinding itself respectively. So then you can't do it in the water. Okay, friends, now washing machines. What's the din within regards to washing machines on Shabbat? Can we work it before Shabbat starts or not? Let's hear now. Large halacha here. Okay, לדידן מותר לצאת בגדים לתוך מכונת כביסה אוטומטית בערב שבת. Remember, מכונת כביסה is a washing machine. So you're allowed to, according to the din, you're allowed to put inside an automated washing machine before Shabbat. סמוך לשקיעת החמה. Close to the time of שקיעת החמה. ולהפעילה קודם שקיעת החמה. And you work it, you operate it just before שקיעת החמה. והיא מכבסת והולכת ביום השבת. And it's going to continue this process on the washing machine on the Shabbat itself. ונפסק פעולתו באופן אוטומטי. It stops by itself automatically. וכתעת מרן שולחן ערוך, שקיבלנו הוראתיו, שמאחר ומלאכת החיבוס נגמרת מעליה על ידי המכונת האוטומטית, מותר. Seemingly it's going to be allowed because you've done everything automated. ואין חוששים להשמעת קול שאומר מכונה של פלוני מכבסת בשבת. And we're not worried because of the noise that it's going to make on Shabbat. Because naturally, we all know, a washing machine produces a lot of noise. It can be annoying. Okay. But obviously the other opinions are going to say not to be like this, and I'm sure other Rabbanim. Okay. ויש להקל בדבר בפרט בחיילים המגיעים לחופשה קצרה בערב שבת, אחר הצהריים, סמוך לכניסת שבת, ועליהם לחזור לבסיסתם מיד בצאת השבת. מוצאי שבת יוציא את הבגדים מהמכונה. Okay, so there's cases here where it's a current issue at the moment. A lot of soldiers are coming back for Shabbat. They might come back 20 minutes before when Shabbat comes in, and they leave straight after Shabbat. What do you do then? So of course over here you'll be allowed to quickly put the clothes in just before Shabbat starts and let it operate inside the system, and then take it out before Shabbat, before you go to the basis. Someone in my building itself, came with his wife and the baby to return from, I think he's situated actually in Gaza or something, so may Hashem protect him. Maybe this halacha also be, all these things we're learning, so there'd be a zchut in his protection. Okay. Okay. Our brothers, the Ashkenazim, will be actually strict within regards to this. Why? Why is this? Because of the fact, because of the noise that it's going to produce. So I don't know, there's going to be other opinions in this camp that might be makel. I'm just saying what it's saying here. There is a leniency even in the Rama as well, that if with the case of the soldiers again or one of these kind of things is going to actually arise, then there is what to be lenient on also over here if it's a press situation. Setting a timer, is that going to be allowed on Shabbat or not, before Shabbat or not? Popular question, we all probably know the answer. Let's see. כביצי מערב שבת, כדי שיוכל לכבות את החשמל בליל שבת, על ידי קשירת השעון למתק החשמל. We know a time switch, actually, according to this, is going to be allowed to do before Shabbat, so that it's going to switch on the lights respectively, switch it on respectively, as the Shabbat comes in. Okay, let's continue. כדי שלק למחרת בשבת. אוקיי, וכן מוצע לכוון מערב שבת את השעון המחובר לחשמל כדי שלק למחרת בשבת. Likewise, set on the timer to switch on Shabbat itself. In the morning, you're getting up. Okay, וכן יש להקל לכיוון את השעון בערב שבת שחל בו יום טוב, לגרום שהחשמל ידלק בשבת על ידי השעון. Okay, what's it saying here, friends? Okay. In fact, one may set up such a system on Friday to turn electricity on Shabbat, even if Friday is a Yom Tov. This assumes that setting it up does involve turning on. Oh wait, let me say it again. In fact, one may set up such a system on Friday. של השעון בקשר עניבה עם הכפתור החשמלי בעצם יום השבת, אף שאינו סמוך לרגע הכיבוי. אלא צריך לקשור את החוט למתק החשמל מערב שבת. Okay, so what's it saying here? If the system one involves tying a string around on and off switch, one may not tie it on. Hi, sorry, I'm just going to move position of the thing. Once again, a lot of these videos has connection problems, so we'll take just a short breather as I will continue. Let's just, I need to get my stuff at the moment. We are in the middle of Halacha 4, so we're talking about timers at the moment. Is it allowed on Shabbat? Is it not? This is what we're discussing about at the moment. I hope there won't be another problem with the connection, and we will continue for a minute. Just moving position. I'm in the streets of Bet Shemesh over here to get an extra snippet of the streets as I am getting to a new locale, as they say, a new position to continue this series. Here we are in the Yalkut Yosef at the moment, so sorry about the interruption. And we will continue now. I've got good position. I hope the connection is going to be good now. Okay, let's continue it now, friends. We were talking all about washing machines on Shabbat, setting the timer up. So we said that one may set up such a system on Friday to turn the electricity on during Shabbat, even if Friday happens to be Yom Tov, assuming obviously that you're not actually turning on electricity or doing a malacha automatically, yourself. If the system one employs involves tying a string around the on and off switch, naturally, one may not tie it on Shabbat, even if one ties it with a slip knot. It must be tied to the light switch before Shabbat begins. That's what we're talking about here. I'll read the last bit in Hebrew also. אין להתיר לקשור את החוט של השעון בקשר עניבה עם הכפתור החשמלי בעצם יום שבת, אף שאינו סמוך לרגע הכיבוי, אלא צריך לקשור את החוט למתק החשמל בערב שבת. Okay, so now friends, we are on Halacha number 6. This is quite a long one, so let's go through this one. Very long one. We're talking about changing the timer settings on Shabbat itself potentially. Is that going to be allowed? Might be you're not touching electricity or in anywhere whatsoever, you're just setting it up. Can this be done? אם כיוון את השעון שבת מערב שבת לכבות את החשמל בליל שבת בשעה מסוימת ובליל שבת רוצה להשאירו דולק עד שעה מאוחרת יותר. So say you've already set it up before Shabbat to switch off at a specific time, and now you want to extend it somehow. You foresee that you don't want this to switch off this time, you want to extend it. Is that going to be allowed? Seemingly, you're allowed to change the time naturally. You're not allowed to change this, actually switch on or off, or make an electrical change over here. It's got to be something done manually. וכל זה, דווקא בשעון שבעת משנה, את זמן כיבוי אינו מבטל את פעולת השעון, אבל שעון הפועל על ידי הברגה, בשבעה שמריפה את הברגה, נפסקת בו פעולת השעון. יש להחמיר שלא לשנות את המחוגים בשבת, ורק במקום צורך יש להקל. Okay, so friends, what it's saying over here, as I said before, if the family wishes to change the clock so that electricity will be turned off at an early hour, then it's set for. They may not do so unless it's for the sake of someone who's ill over here. This is going to be an added thing. Just going back to it, why would it be permissible to do this? This is permitted only if the function of the clock does not cease while one moves the hands of the clock. So when you're actually going to extend the timing of this, you have to make sure that the time itself does not cease. Okay, if it's permitted only if the function of the clock does not cease while one moves the hands of the clock. If the clock works in such a manner that one unscrews its hands from the spring in order to change their position, and during that time the clock ceases to function, one is not going to be allowed to move the hands on Shabbat unless one has urgent need. Only if it's an emergency, seemingly, you can do it. So this is where you can actually do potentially a Halacha of Shabbat over here. Okay. ואם רוצה להקדים את זמן כיבוי החשמל לשעה מוקדמת יותר, הנכון להחמיר בזה מפני שהוא כגורם כיבוי ואסור מדרבנן. ורק לצורך עולה שאין בו סכנה שמצטער מהאור ואינו יכול לישון. יש להציל להקדים את זמן הכיבוי, ובלבד שיזהה שלא לקרב יותר מדי, פן יעשה הכיבוי בידיים. Okay, so what's it saying here? Okay. If the family wishes to change the clock so that electricity will be turned off at an earlier hour than it's set for, they may not do so unless it's for the sake of someone ill. In that case, even if the sick person is not at all in danger, this can be permitted accordingly. If there are people who insist on being lenient, even when it's only for the sake for convenience or for thrift, when no one is ill, and they adjust the clock to turn off the electricity at an earlier time, it's not necessary to protest this practice. You don't make a fight with them about it. They do have some sort of basis to rely upon on this permissible act, but ideally you shouldn't rely on this, especially in a regular case. Okay. ואמרנו מכילים בזה שלא במקום חולי יש להם על מה שיסמכו, ולבד שיזהה שלא יקרב את מחוגי השעון יותר מדי, פן יכבה בידיים You've got to be careful when you're going to change the timings on this clock. You're not actually going to switch it off itself, because then you can be performing a Halacha of Shabbat. So there's got to be a lot of carefulness done when you're going to do this. So you should be familiar with the system. ואין להקל להזיז את מחוגי השעון בשבת בשעה שהחשמל מחובר, בכדי להקדים את שעת ההדלקה בשעה יותר מוקדמת בשבת עצמה, אלא אם כן מקום מצווה לצורך לימוד תורה וכדומה. Okay, if the clock is set to turn electricity on at a certain hour and the family would like the lights to go on earlier, they may not change the clock on Shabbat to turn it on earlier unless it's for the sake of a mitzvah, the bar mitzvah over here, such as learning Torah. However, it's permissible for any reason to change the clock so that it turns on electricity at a later time. So if you want to make it earlier, regular circumstance you can, but if you want to switch it on later, seemingly you can do it over here. And there's a difference over here. אבל כדי לאחר את שעת ההדלקה ולדחותה בעוד מעט זמן בשעה שהחשמל דולק, מותר להזיז את מחוגי השעון. Okay, let's continue. באור החשמל שכעת הוא כיבוי והוא עתיד להדליק על ידי שעון השבת ורוצים למנוע את הדלקתו, מותר לעשות כן על ידי שינוי מתק החשמל המחובר אל הקיר למצב של כיבוי, ואין בזה משום גרם כיבוי, כיוון שגם עכשיו אור החשמל מחובר. So what's saying there, friends? If a lamp is set up by a timer to go on at some time during Shabbat and the family wants to stop it from going on at all, it's allowed to turn the light switch to the off position before the timer turns on the light. This is not considered an act of causing a fire to be extinguished, since the light is off at this time, this specific time over here. It's actually off at that point in time, so there's no worry within regards to that. Okay. Okay, let's continue. The connection's good at the moment. We're all listening. Hope you're all being inspired. ואף על פי שמתק החשמל בשעון השבת הם מוקצה, לכל מקום מוצע לזם לנגוע בהם כנראה לי. שיש לסמוך על הפוסקים הסוברים שאין דין מוקצה במחובה. וכל זה הוא בתנאי שיתנה מערב שבת שיוכל להזיזם. אם ירצה, בתנאי אחד מועיל לכל השנה כולה. Okay, so what's the saying here, friends? Okay. Let's continue. Okay. Furthermore, although a light switch and a timer are items that are muksa, it's nevertheless permissible to move them in these specific cases here. Relying, there's poskim, there's rabbanim, who ruled anything connected to the ground is not muksa, mukhubar lakarka, as they call naturally. One must have stipulated before Shabbat that one may move the switch if one wants. However, it's sufficient to make such a stipulation once a year. So you've got to make it tonight. Just like if you want to get up early on the day of a fast to eat something just before fast starts, you've got to make a condition before the fasting starts. A yearly condition of doing this protocol will be allowed. Okay, you know what? Let's continue at the moment. Yeah, it's a Sunday morning at the moment. Just gonna have something to drink. I said a bracha before. Not the healthiest drink, but need some energy in the morning. Didn't have breakfast yet. Everyone should have a breakfast before they start these things. Okay, we're talking about answering machines on Shabbat. Is that going to be allowed or not? Remember, back in the day, a lot of people used answering machines wherever they were in the world. Still they do, especially doctors and some of that. Is this going to be allowed or not? Well, it's quite hot and sunny at the position I'm sitting in. We're in the middle of winter at the moment here in Israel, but we sure have a good weather today. טלפון המחובר לו מכשיר הקלטה הנקרא מזכירה אלקטרונית. כשהטלפון מקבל הודעה למסור את שמו, כתובתו ובקשתו, והכל נקלט. ובעל הטלפון משאיר הטלפון מערב שבת כשעה לפני השבת, או משעת תוספת בשבת. ולפעמים יש חילונים המתקשרים בשבת, והיא קולטת הכל, ובמוצאי שבת ניגש בעל הטלפון ושומע את כל מה שהוקלט מערב שבת, או בשבת עצמו. ואם הוא רופא מקיש רפואות תעלה, או שהוא סוחר מקבל הזמנות וכדומה, something like that, וכדומה, במקומות שרוב אנשי הם גויים, יש להציע בזה, okay. ואין בזה חשש משום ולפני עיוור לא תיתן מכשול, ולא משום איסור מסייע בידי עוברי עבודה, ובמקומות שרובם יהודים יש להחמיר. So friends, what's it talking about over here? I'll say in English. A doctor may leave an answering... Sorry, a connection went again. A doctor may leave an answering machine connected to his cell phone even on Shabbat, so that after Shabbat he can hear the messages from patients or about patients and deal with them efficiently. Likewise, if someone has a business, let's just say, within regards to and non-Jewish clients are liable to call on Shabbat, naturally because they don't have to keep Shabbat, one may leave an answering machine on, but only if the city one lives in is populated mostly by non-Jews over there. That's the condition of it. Okay, although some of the calls may be from non-observant Jews, it could be Chilonim or called. People don't keep Shabbat, unfortunately. We hope everyone, daven it that everyone will start keeping Shabbat, obviously. Even though some of these non-observant Jews might leave a message on the on his answering machine, it's not considered a stumbling block upon those people, because sometimes we're worried that we're putting a stumbling block upon some people over here. In a city where most of the population is Jewish, however, one may not leave the answering machine connected on Shabbat. It's in regular business, but remember, if it's a case within regards to a doctor or something like that, there is a different thing. Okay, so now let's talk about vending machines here. Let's get the connection back again. We're now talking about vending machines on Shabbat. Is that going to be allowed to operate or not? You know, it's a popular business. You can make a lot of money where you don't have to do any work. Actually, funnily enough, there was a tzitzit vending machine I saw a picture of only the other day over here. So you can sell religious items also. Halacha chet at the moment. Okay. מה שמצוי כיום שעמידים מכונות מיוחדת שכל אחד יכול לצאת שם איזו מטבעות, ועל ידי לחיצה על כפתור באופן אוטומטי יוצא מתוכה איזה דבר מאכל ומשקה לפי ערך המטבע, ואין אף אדם עומד ליד המכונה. אם הוא באיש רובה יהודים, יש לזכור את המכונת בערב שבת על מנת שלא להכשיל את הקונים באיסורי שבת. Okay, in a city that's populated mostly by Jews, the majority is Jewish, one must turn off for duration of Shabbat any vending machine that one has stationed in public places. Naturally, this will apply everywhere in Israel, you would assume, or the places where the Jewish people live. This is so that one does not give a non-observant Jew an opportunity to desecrate the Shabbat by using the machine. You put it in Tel Aviv. It could be there's non-religious people there, unfortunately. They might end up using it on Shabbat itself and desecrating Shabbat. Okay, if the city is populated mostly by non-Jews, however, some Rabbonim will actually rule that one may leave the vending machines working on Shabbat as long as it's not obvious they are Jewish machines. If the machine is a Jewish establishment, naturally, it's going to be a machine which is selling Kodesh items like tzitzit and stuff like that. Of course, you can't switch it on Shabbat. Okay, okay. Okay, let's just say last bit again. Okay. ואין אף אדם עומד ליד המכונה אם הוא בעיר שבה יהודים יש לזכור את המכונה מערב שבת על מנת שלא להכשיל את הקונים בישראל שבת ובעיר שרובם גויים יש מציעים לפעיל את המכונה מערב שבת וליתן לתוכו מאכל ומשקה ומאכל ואין שמו של ישראל על המכונה ורק אם המכונה עומדת ברשות הישראל יש להחמיר. Okay, so if we're in the reshut of a Jewish reshut, then you can't do it. Let's try and do one more and then we're gonna wrap it up. Today we're talking about radios and tape recorders over here, and then I'll leave the television one to another time because we're going to talk about that also. Asur lishmoa shirim or chadashot ma radio b'Shabbat. You're not allowed to listen to songs, naturally, news on the radio on Shabbat. Af im radio uchan me'erev Shabbat al yidei sha'on automati shemadlik u'mechabe et radio ma'alav. You can't set a timer on to listen to the things and to switch it off automatically. You want to. I remember back in the day when I was young, people wanted to know the football scores, so they would switch it on the timer, the radio, to listen to the scores. Not allowed. Okay. Ve'im tachanat. Okay. Ve'im tachanat radio muf'elet al yedei goyim. Gam ken yesh lorot lachmir b'zeh. Even if it's operated by non-Jewish people, you're in the Chutzarts, you can't be. Gam ken yesh lorot lachmir b'zeh. You should be strict on this. Mishum ziluto of Shabbat. It's a mebezbez. It's a degradation of the Shabbat itself. But od tamim, there's more reasons. Afilu im modia b'petach beito sha'redio orach me'erev Shabbat al yidei she'on Shabbat. Even if you're going to stipulate, you're going to put some sort of notice that this radio was switched on before Shabbat. Still, v'chein ein la'afil tape me'erev Shabbat al yidei she'on Shabbat lishmo shirim b'Shabbat. You cannot set a timer on the tapes if you want to listen to music on Shabbat, because that's not going to be allowed also, naturally. You can't just do that. It's mebazbez, the Shabbat itself. Mishum zinzul b'chavod HaShabbat, because it's a degradation of Shabbat. V'od tamim, more reasons. U'be'eretz Yisrael, she'ovdim b'tachanat sha'ashidur hem Yehudim. In Israel, the radio stations are operated by Jews. Harihu ne'ene memlechet Shabbat. And there's another reason here. You're benefiting from them desecrating Shabbat, so there's an extra reason over here. ולכן, אם יש לו שכן, חילוני, השומע רדיו בשבת, what if you've got a non-observant Jew in the apartment next to you and you can hear things through the walls? It's a thin wall. אסור לו לעטות אוזן להקשיב לחדשות. You should not try and concentrate your mind onto listening to what's going on in the radio. You should try and make it distractive. וכן חייל דתי שנמצא עם עוד חיילים בחדר אחד. So you're in army and you've got non-religious people in the army and you're on duty. Can you listen to the news of itself or not? וחייל חילוני הדליק רדיו לשמוע חדשות או שירים. Say that this non-observant Jew is going to now come and switch on and listen to music or listen to news. אין החייל הדתי מחויב. Okay, it's saying something over here. אין החייל הדתי מחויב לצאת ולעזוב את החדר. Then the soldier, the religious one, hasn't got to leave the room over here. He hasn't got to leave the room for this. אבל כדי שלא ייהנה מאיסור מלאכת שבת, אלא יעשה מאמץ להסיח דעתו על ידי קריאת בספר קדוש, באופן שלא ייהנה מכל הנגינה. So you've got a non-religious soldier. He's inside the room, and there's a religious one also. And this non-religious soldier wants to listen to music. He's switching it on. This religious soldier that's in the room with him hasn't got to leave the room. However, he should distract his mind away from the music. He should not try and benefit from it. He should take out a book itself like this and study it and concentrate his mind on that instead of listening to the music itself. So he hasn't got to leave the room, especially for that. You know what? We've got 3 more halachot to do. Let's take it away. We are now on halacha 10. This is Halacha Yud here in the Yalkut Yosef. Siman 252. Let's take away. We're talking about televisions. Can you operate a TV on Shabbat on a time switch or not? Obviously you shouldn't, but is it allowed at the end of the day? אסור לכוון את שעון השבת, מערב שבת, שיפעיל את מכשיר הטלוויזיה בשבת, לשמוע חדשות וכיוצא בזה, מפני שעריכת התוכניות באולפן כרוכה, בהרבה מלאכות אסורות בשבת, הנעשות על ידי ישראלים מחללי שבת. Okay, it's forbidden to watch television on Shabbat, even it was set to go on and off automatically with a timer. So even if you set a timer up over here, you shouldn't watch it. Okay. Unfortunately, there are many acts of melacha performed all the time in the television studios by Jews. I know in England, unfortunately, I've got friends of mine, I think they work in TV, not religious ones, so massive, massive problem. And we may not receive any benefit from those acts. And all the more so in Israel. In Israel, the people would, unfortunately, there's televisions operating over there, which we should pray this must stop over here, there, in every shape and form. Okay. Let's say someone set this timer up and the TV is going to come on. You should not look at the television, especially if you're living in a house where you've got a member of the household not religious. You should not come in the room and join in to watch the football, despite he did it or whatever it might be. Say he wanted to watch football. Because then you're benefiting from someone that's actually performed the melacha of Shabbat itself on Shabbat. So you can't now get a free ride and it's a flagrant disregard of the Shabbat itself. Okay. Someone that's got a fear of Hashem should not even watch the television during the week also. That's the thing. Even if it's occasionally you want to watch the TV and sort of that, you should resist temptation. There's things not to know naturally inside. There's bad things in it. Also, it's a bittul Torah, also you're not going to be learning Torah so much as ever that if you're just glued to the screen, and so that's many different reasons. Because there's this concept of moshav eitzim, it's a waste of time over here. We need to distance ourselves from these things. It's just this television, in most cases, is a waste of time. Obviously, if it's educational and you're in the right circumference where you're watching something educational in a proper atmosphere, then maybe then that's something different. Okay. It's a problem to have a television inside the house for a number of reasons. He's going so far to say, not to bring an abomination in your home. Wow. Over here. That's how great. Also, so what's that saying? Do not harbor an instrument of wickedness in your dwelling, because unfortunately with TV, in many cases nowadays with all the cable television, there's a lot of bad things also on, and it's by the remote of the finger. ולכן גם בחוץ לארץ שתוכניות בטלוויזיה נערכת על ידי גויים לצורך הגויים אסור לכוון השעון כדי להסתכל בטלוויזיה בליל שבת. Even if you're living in England or South Africa or wherever you are, and most of the people working there are not Jewish, then also it's not going to be allowed to be done. Okay, we've got 2 more halachot to do. It reminds me of a story. I heard this about someone in England. They didn't want the kids to watch TV anymore. They were glued to the TV the whole time, so they pretended there was a burglary in the house one night and told the kids the next morning there was a burglary, so they took all the televisions away and they stole everything. So they didn't want the kids to watch the TV anymore. So that was a very smart idea that they did over there, and the kids stopped watching TV. Okay, now we've got 3 more halachot actually. Let's go for it. The Yetzar in me wants me to finish this early, but let's try and finish this whole topic so everyone will enjoy. Okay. Now we're talking about loudspeakers on Shabbat. Is it going to be allowed to use a loudspeaker on Shabbat? What do you think? I've got a pigeon right next to me a bit. Yalla. Let's go. To put a microphone on, it's asur on Shabbat, loudspeaker. You can't do it so that you can speak on Shabbat using it. There's a concept of ma'avir and mechabet on Shabbat. Extinguishing and also flaming. to igniting a fire. ואפילו אם עושים כן על ידי שעון ולצורך מצווה, כגון בית כנסת רחב ידיים, שאי אפשר לשמוע את קולו של השליח ציבור המתפלל, או הקורא בצורה אלא על ידי רמקול, גם בזה אין להקל. So you're in a synagogue, and it's a huge synagogue, and maybe the person can't hear the chazan, you still can't do that. וכן אסור לכוון tape מערב שבת. You can't switch on a tape before the Shabbat in those days. כדי לפעולו על ידי שעון שבת. Naturally, we spoke about this just before. בכדי להקליט בשבת שירה וזמרה או דרשות. You cannot record a drasha on Shabbat itself. If someone's going to give a grandiose a sermon in the synagogue, you cannot record it naturally, or you can't record the davening. מפני שמוליד קול בסרטי הרשם קול. You're actually creating this noise with the thing. ובפרט מכשירי רשם קול שנדלקים בהם אורות בשעת ההקלטה שיש לאסור גם משום הבערה. Okay. There's also the עבירה of הבערה. וראוי ונכון שהחזנים והמשוררים המפיצים קלטות עם שירה וזמרה יזהרו שלא יגיע הקלטות אלא לידי אנשי דלו מעלי. אנשים המחלים שבת בפרהסיה העלולים לשמוע שירים אלו בשבת ומועד. We've got to be careful, the chazanim that and the singers that actually make tapes for chazanut and all that stuff, they should make sure it doesn't go to the wrong hands where people will end up on listening to this stuff on Shabbat. One's got to be careful. They should put warning signs on the discs or on the tapes, not to use it on Shabbat. Okay. ומי הוא מעיקר דין מוצע להקליט שירה וזמרה לשם מכירת הקלטות וטוב שיתבסו על הקלטות שאין להשתמש בהם בשבת. You're allowed to make discs and tapes of chazanot which people would dub on normal Shabbat if you do it during the week, but you should put on the thing a sticker saying that not to listen to it on Shabbat. Yeah, we obviously hope also, just as an added thing, we hope no one's going to misuse these tapes which people do for, let's say, assuming it's for the right reasons. Okay, two more halachot. Alarm clocks. Can you set up an alarm clock before Shabbat begins? Let's say, מותר לכוון מערב שבת שעון מעורר, אף שהשעון יצלצל וישמע קול בשבת, או בשבת עצמה, כשהשעון מצלצל, אם השעון פועל על ידי בטריה, נכון מאוד להחמיר שלא להפסיק את הצלצול. You're allowed to set up the timer on Shabbat, naturally. And if it's a battery-powered clock, when it rings, you must refrain from manually stopping the ring. You must not stop the ring over there, naturally. אבל בשעון הפועל על ידי כפית, מותר להפסיק בשבת את הצלצול על ידי לחיצה על הכפתור. What if it's a case where it's a mechanical wind-up clock over here, not a battery-operated one? Then it's allowed to press a button that stops it from ringing. Okay. ובשעון מעורר כזה, אף אם היה סגור מערב שבת ורוצה לפתחו ולהרים את הכפתור כדי שיצלצל בשעה המיועדת לעורר, יש לעצור לסכן. If it's a manual clock and you want to set up it to ring by pushing or pulling out the case to switch, if the ringer has wound down from its last use, one may even wind it up again on Shabbat so that will ring again. Wow. Okay. Okay. Also, if it's a mechanical wind-up clock, as we said before, one may actually press a button that stops it ringing. Okay. וכן, אם שכח למלא את הצלצול בשעון המעורר בשבת, מותר למלאתו בשבת כדי שיצלצל לעורר. Okay, last halacha, friends. As I said before, I recommend to everyone, look over the halachot inside yourselves. Don't just listen to this shiur itself. Always it's good to look at it inside. Already in Yud Gimel, last halacha. מצווה למשמש בכיסי הבגדים בערב שבת סמוך לחשיכה כדי שלא יהיה בהם דברים שאסור לצאת בהם בשבת לרשות הרבים או דברי מוקצה. So friends, what's going on here? Our sages over here, they instituted a specific mitzvah to check the pockets of garments one is wearing just before Shabbat begins, to ensure that there's nothing in them that one might forget and carry out in public domain on Shabbat. It happened to me, unfortunately, once. Well, I realized I had some of my stuff inside a suit jacket. On Shabbat, I came to the synagogue and I realized that was the case. So one's got to be careful before Shabbat begins in regards to that. So we've done an achievement over here. We've done a whole Siman 252. The next section is going to be 253. We're going to talk about leaving food on the fire as Shabbat begins. I believe this is my 17th installment of the Yalkut Yosef. So please watch over the previous videos, share it, like it, distribute it to others. Let's learn it. It's important to learn the Halachot of Shabbat. I'm going to leave you all. Remember, this is Lilui Nishmat, Rabbi Leo D's wife, and 2 of the daughters that were murdered during Pesach. Maybe their memory be, all of them, a blessing. This whole series is. So wishing you a great day. Shabbat and Barach. You had an amazing Shabbat, and take care.